Weeding vinyl should be a pretty simple process in your Cricut crafting, but it isn't always that simple. So today I'm going to go over a few tips and tricks on how to weed your vinyl when you're having issues with either seeing where the cut lines are or weeding really tiny little fonts and graphics, and we're going to go over that all right now. So first I'm going to start out by just showing you what tools I like to use when I'm weeding. I have my Cricut hook type weeding tool. I have my pin pen, which just helps with some of the very smaller intricate parts. I always have a tiny baby little tweezers on hand to grab all those little pieces, my burnishing or scraper tool, and my weeding little garbage can grabber thing. So let's get started. First, we're gonna head over to Cricut Design Space so I can show you how I set up my fonts and graphics so that they're easier to weed. I am going to head over to the offset for this Hello Fall and try to make it small. But as you can see, when the font is really small, it doesn't get maybe as tight of an offset as I would like. So what I'm gonna do is come down and grab my font and make it really big and then add my offset. This way I can get it a lot closer to the actual words, and then I will be able to shrink this back down to the size I want. So after you have the size that you want, you can hit apply, and then you can change the colors here so you can see where your offset is compared to your words that you actually want. And then you're going to grab both of them and hit attach. Then you can grab your corner and drag it back down to the size that you want to be cutting. This just helps to see how big that offset is and making sure that most of these letters, the offsets are touching, because that's what will help make this weeding process easier. Then as you can see down here on this bottom one, I also have a box attached to it. So going up to the left-hand shapes panel, just grab a square. You're gonna pull that over your words that you want to weed out, and you can go ahead and unlock this up on the top and adjust it so that it fits better. After you have the right size, you can go up to the top and hit send to the back. Once you have it fitting the right size that you would like, you can go down to the bottom right hand corner after you select all of these pieces, so the box and the words, and we're going to hit attach. Then I'm just going to go up to the top and change the color so that you can see all the different parts, kind of like the one on the bottom down here where it says Hello Fall. Now this is going to cut all these pieces separately, if that makes sense. So they're all one piece, but they will cut individually. Then for the next one, I am just going to grab a rectangle and do the same. I'm going to size this rectangle to fit the best over this ho 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 with the stars and send it to the back. And then going up to the top to unlock the sizing, you can pull this up to make it a little bit shorter and tighter. And then I will click on both of these and select them and hit attach. And that will also just give me a box around these words and stars so that it's easier to pull these apart. And then for the Merry Christmas, I am going to do the same as I did with Hello Fall. We are just going to make a quick offset on here, and then we will put a box around it and attach everything and turn it white so that you can see how that is going to work. I'm going to start with this one right here because, as you can see, this is a textured vinyl that I got from Tech Wrap, which I really love They're textured vinyls and it comes in so many different fun colors, but I have the hardest time seeing the cut lines. I have to kind of hold it a certain way. I don't have a light box, but I never really had much luck with light underneath the vinyl. But one trick that we can use here today is using some baby powder. If you don't have baby powder on hand, you could always use something like cinnamon or nutmeg. Something in the powdery spice department would work. But here I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on, and then I'm going to rub it around on my vinyl so that I can find where all of those little lines are. I'm gonna shake this off. Well, there's still a lot of powder on here. And with this one, you can see it a little bit better. It's because of the texture, it's still a little bit tricky to see. But if you can maybe see that, there are some lines that I can now work with. And with this design, I used an offset and a box around my design so that this will be so much easier to weed. Sometimes this textured stuff is pretty difficult, but I tried to do as many tricks on this one as I can to get this to weed perfectly. So I'm going to start out by pulling my box off. And as you can see, it's gonna work around that offset that I added around my letters. I'm just gonna peel all of this one off. As you can see, I got a little close to the edge here, but all my design is there. Now what I'm going to do is grab this corner where my offset is starting, and hopefully this cut well. I used the holographic vinyl setting on my Cricut in the custom settings, and then I do more pressure, especially with this Tech Wrap vinyl. That just seems to work the best for me, especially with this thicker vinyl. And as you can see, this offset is just pulling back the vinyl away from the letters that I want to keep. And slowly work my way around. Now some people would rip this off like a Band-Aid, but for this one, I'm not gonna do that because sometimes I have to push these little letters back down again, and then I can't just rip that off so fast. But as you can see, this offset worked really, really well with this design. Pulling out some of these extra pieces. This vinyl is super sticky, so you really want to make sure it doesn't stick down to the parts you're trying to keep on your backing. I've had problems with that before, where I have too many pieces kind of floating around on the top here as I'm peeling it back, and then it just sticks down and it makes a mess. Now, if you maybe noticed, this part here came up. There's a little separate piece in here, but that's okay because that was also part of the offset, so I didn't want that there anyways. And now we can go back in and pull out the extra little pieces that were left behind, that were not attached to the offset. I'm just gonna finish pulling out these little spots as I stick them right into my little thing here. Now you can, when you're done with this, go ahead and take a wet, damp towel and just kind of wipe that baby powder off. Was that offset on the inside of there yet? I needed to get out just to kind of clean that up a little bit. Now this graphic, I believe, just got right out of the Cricut library of images. If you are wondering where this Merry Christmas font came from. This is where those tweezers come in. It is a little slick with that baby powder on there. And one more little piece here. And there you go. And I can just pop the rest of this off because I didn't need that. That was just the outline from that box I had made. And there's the first weeding little hack that we did there with the box around it and an offset along with the baby powder, which I know it didn't look like the baby powder maybe did very much from where you could see it, but from where I'm sitting, I could see the lines much better and then I knew where to grab. Now, if you don't want to use the baby powder method, you don't have to. With that box and the offset around it, you should be able to navigate to figure out where those cut lines are. But with some of these vinyls, it is extremely difficult to see, but this one worked great and we are finished with this one. Moving on, this is the Caesar, I believe this is a Caesar vinyl. I could be wrong on that. This is a glitter vinyl. It is not Cricut. I do not care for the Cricut vinyl, the glitter vinyl, because it's very textured and those lines are super hard to see, even though you can't really see this at all either. This stuff cuts and weeds so much easier. But for this one, we are going to do something that's called reverse weeding, and I will show you why that is going to work best on this one. I'm going to cut a piece of my transfer paper here, which is actually just the Duck brand contact paper. It's the clear stuff. It does have lines on the back if you need to measure out what size you need for stuff. But this is my go-to. I like this stuff a lot. You can get huge rolls of it and it's pretty inexpensive and it just seems to work the best for what I need. Now with the reverse weeding, what we're going to do is take our contact paper. I can get my corner started. And we are going to cover up our design here. And with my burnishing or scraper tool, I'm going to press that down the best that I can and then peel this up. It already wants to come off of the backing. And I'm going to put it down on my Cricut cutting mat because it's sticky, and this way it will hold that down for me, because sometimes with reverse weeding, it pulls up and sticks all over the place, so you want to secure that transfer tape down so you don't have any of those problems. Then what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to scrape this one more time on the back side here just to make sure all that vinyl is sticking down really well. And I'm going to peel off the backing. Now I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is a super tiny little font that I used. It's called Clean Notes. I will have all this stuff linked down below so you can find what I'm using here today. But it is a super, super skinny font. And I find that reverse weeding works the best for skinny fonts and little detailed designs. I also went ahead and did a box and an offset around this as well, just to make it a lot easier to work with here. Now, because you're peeling this up off the transfer tape, sometimes it takes a little bit to kind of get it started. But I'm going to start in this corner and peel up this box that I made around my words. Again, I used a scrap that was just the right size. So it's kind of coming off the edge here where my box was, but it did not affect the design at all, which is just some words. So I'm going to finish peeling up this box. And my transfer tape is wanting to peel off the back of this, which is not good. I'm just gonna pull the rest of this. I am trying my best to get between the vinyl and that transfer tape and not actually pulling holes and putting holes in the back of that transfer tape, because that's easy to do when doing this. As you can see here, I was pulling up the transfer paper and not just the vinyl. Okay, so now I have that box taken off. And what I'm going to do is start taking the offset, and I can just slowly pull this down and around. I'll try to do this the best I can so you can see it, but it's super skinny. And I'm just slowly peeling this back. All right. There's the first one. I don't know if you can see that very well there. This H, that's the font size. So as you can see, it's very, very thin. So using this offset was for sure the way to go. I'm just gonna keep working my way around here. Sometimes weeding can be a very quick process, and then other times, not so much. So I try not to do too many big projects with little tiny fonts and graphics like this because it is such a pain, but this way works pretty well. So we have part of this done. It says Hello Fall. And we're gonna just find the corner here, the F. And now you can see we have a very, very skinny Hello Fall. Can you see that? There you go. Trying to weed something this skinny the normal way is not easy, and I do not recommend it. It is such a pain. But cutting this on the holographic vinyl setting with more pressure was just what it needed to make all those little tiny cuts. Sometimes it likes to stay attached at the tops of these letters. So with that extra pressure, it made it cut all the way through. And I highly recommend using the reversed weeding method for your tiny little designs. Next, we are going to use something called the snap method, where you rip it off like a Band-Aid. So I am going to place this down on my mat. And again, I have a box around it. And that is what I'm going to start with for ripping it fast. So all you do is, hopefully this is all down well, just rip it fast. Now, that would have been successful, but it pulled all my stars off. So there were all these little tiny stars on here. So I may have pulled it a little too fast, but as you can see, sometimes if you don't want to go through the weeding hassle, when you have maybe something simple to weed, you can just rip it right off. Now, I think because these had a bunch of stars on there, which I can just put back, this would work fine if you didn't have all these other little pieces. And I may do one more as an example so that you see how you can do this without losing most of your design. But then you can go in and just grab out all these extra letter pieces. That was actually really easy. I mean, I did lose a lot of my stars, and if I needed this for something, that would not be very good. But that is one other method you can use, especially if it's just maybe words or something. Like if I adjust the ho 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 here that I wanted, that worked so well. Then I didn't have the problem of slowly pulling everything up and then having it sticking to everything as I'm trying to work my way around all the letters. But again, I also think that having the cut setting, even though this is just regular permanent vinyl, it worked really well to have it on the holographic setting with more pressure, because there was nothing in here that was connected even a little bit. Sometimes you have those little pieces that like to hang on and then it starts to pull all your letters off. So I will definitely be using that setting for most of my vinyl because that works really well. But that is your snap method. And here we go with our second attempt with a design that would work a little bit better with this. As you can see, I'm just pulling this vinyl off in one fast motion. And this is not sped up at all, so this is the actual time that it is taking me to weed this. And this design has cheetah print in the pumpkin, and you can see as I go through each one of these little pumpkin sections how quick this actually is for weeding this pumpkin out. If I would be trying to do this on my own, like slowly, the normal way of weeding something like this, it would take me a really long time. So this is definitely the type of design I would use this on, as it just goes so much faster. So there you have it. There are a few different methods you can try with snap weeding, reverse weeding, and using baby powder, and all the different tips and tricks that you can test out. Which ones of these have you tried before? Let me know down in the comments. Does this help at all? Is your weeding process going to be easier from now on? Let me know, and stay tuned for more tips and tricks in your Cricut crafting.